Welcome back to Peer-Guided DBT Lessons, provided by DBT Skills application, Peers Helping Peers. This week's lesson, marked 2-7 in our Distress Tolerance module, we'll be looking at urge surfing. Please keep in mind that we're simply peers helping peers, working together to bring about more peaceful, constructive, and ultimately happier lives. In other words, a life worth living. So what is an urge? With all the data continuously entering the info sorting system of our brains, some of that data will act as cues. The brain will recognize those as something that was responded to in the past in a manner that brought about a reward. The cue signals the brain that by repeating a behavior, a reward of some type may occur, a trigger. The trigger prompts an urge to respond with the same behavior in an attempt to obtain the same reward. A reward doesn't always mean getting something desired. It can also mean avoiding something undesired. If our response is duplicated, with the same behavior repeated that occurred the last time we responded to an urge, chances are we will attain a duplicate reward. Besides the tangible rewards that we're aiming for, the brain reinforces the cycle by rewarding us with a burst of our natural feel-good chemicals for having reached our goal. This reward increases the strength of that cue to trigger an urge. Rewards remind us to repeat. This built-in automatic reward system reinforces responses that are necessary for our survival. A cue that triggers an urge that elicits a response can cause us to take care of our personal needs. What if we never had an urge to eat, no matter how depleted our fuel? Or to drink? Or how about sleep? And how about, well, you get the idea. If only our reward system could differentiate. Our brain rewards any reward achieved, even if the tangible reward is only fleetingly temporary. The long-term destruction that it caused by responding to that particular urge is not taken into consideration. The brain's reward system will reward to reinforce all attained tangible rewards, even those that turn out to be harmful. Remember, an urge is not directed towards a specific action. Rather, we crave the reward that the action can bring to us. When we are in an enclosed area where no natural light can enter, the cue we get is the inability to see anything. We can't move in any direction because we have no visual of the location of objects we may wish to move towards or the location of things we would prefer to avoid. Our cue would be darkness, and our trigger would cause the urge to take action to make sight possible. The action to make things visible is to flip the light switch leading to the reward of instant light, making our surroundings visible. What if we were to learn, hypothetically, through scientific discovery that this artificial light would cause a form of poison to our systems? Would we stop flipping that switch and choose to live in darkness? Once we have experienced the reward of instant light replacing the darkness? Since sometimes avoiding the cue or trigger is not possible, we could look for alternatives to achieve the reward while avoiding responding in a way that would bring greater problems in the long run. In our hypothetical example, rather than flipping the light switch as a response to the urge to lighten the dark room, perhaps we could change our response to adding light by substituting it with a different or safer means. While the effects may not be as intense as the simple act of flipping the switch, we could find that using a flashlight or candle may be sufficient to satisfy our craving for light. By substituting an unhealthy, dangerous response to our urge with one that is safe, even if it is not as intensely satisfying, it can still bring us a reward. In other cases, substituting a healthy response for one that is possibly impulsive and damaging, in the long run simply isn't a possibility. In most instances of urges, we're faced with the decision of flipping the switch, even with the knowledge that it could cause us harm or mean getting through the urge without responding to it. Unfortunately, having the reasoning power available to understand any possible damaging repercussions beyond the immediate rewards does nothing to curb the urge. The only way to lessen the urge is to break the cycle. When we experience an urge and then act on the impulse, the brain makes the connection, and the only way to make the urge go away is by engaging in the urge behavior. We've used a thermometer to illustrate the intensity of an urge as it builds. To start off, we like it. Next, we want it. Then, we need it. Now, we crave it. As it keeps building, it finally gives us the urge to respond. As the intensity of a craving builds, it feels like it is going to keep on getting worse, and if you don't give in to it, feel like it will last forever. In actual fact, if you can just wait it out, it will peak in intensity after a few minutes and then gradually subside into nothingness. Over time, you are able to reteach your brain that it is possible to experience an urge without acting on it. Things that won't help. Just wait it out. How trying to ignore an urge feeds it. Often people try to eliminate the urges by distraction or talking themselves out of them. This usually just feeds the urges and creates the illusion that they are interminable until you give in to them. There is plenty of research to show that suppressing a thought, feeling, or sensation, including pain, ultimately increases it. Just try not to think of something specific. Do not think about pink elephants. Are you able to block that thought out of your mind? Focus. Focus. Don't think about it. Remember that thing you were told to not think about? Most of you have let the thought of pink elephants creep into your mind. That is what happens inside our minds when we try not to think of something. The urge will refuse to be ignored. Really? Need I say more? There just are no words for this. Now this is where we all take a breath and laugh a little. Unless, of course, you're the one in the picture. So, we can't ignore them. Should we fight against them? So now let's take a look at how trying to fight an urge feeds it. To better understand the effects of attempting to fight an urge, let's compare an urge to a riptide or rip current. Both are impossible to fight effectively and have many other aspects in common. Now let's take a look at the similarities between rip currents and fighting urges. Rip currents are a perfect metaphor for fighting urges, to explain how fighting against them only further feeds them and makes things worse. Below we have three columns. We have the first one with rip currents, the second with the similarities, and the third with urges. Starting with rip currents. They are a long, narrow band of water with a strong current flowing towards the sea. An urge is very specific and directionally oriented, and the similarities are very specific, going in one direction. If an object or person gets caught in one, it takes control and pushes them in the direction it chooses. If an urge catches a person, it takes control and pushes them the direction of the urge's choice. And the similarities can overpower, impossible to ignore, can't just push it away. Next we have, generally speaking, a riptide is less than 100 feet wide and subsides 50 to 100 yards from shore. Most urges will subside in no longer than 30 minutes. And the similarities, they're short-lived, of unmistakable duration. Next we have, under rip currents, fighting against one makes it feel impossible to escape. And with urges, fighting against one makes it feel stronger and creates the illusion that they are interminable until you give in. And the similarities feel impossible to escape. Next, we have fighting against it will cause distress. And with urges, fighting against it will cause distress. The similarities, distressing. And finally, riding out the wave will release you from it. And with urges, riding out the wave will release you from it. And the similarities, riding out the wave will release you from it. So let's take another look at the similarities between rip currents and fighting urges. They're both very specific, going in one direction. They both can overpower, they're impossible to ignore, and can't just push them away. They're both short-lived and unmistakable in duration. They both feel impossible to escape, and they're both distressing. We can't just ignore an urge wave, and we can't talk ourselves out of it, and we can't fight against it. But what we can do is we can ride it out. We can surf the urge. Riding out the wave will release you from it. So what is urge surfing? Expounding on the use of water as metaphors relating to urges, we can imagine that urges are like ocean waves. The start of a wave, ocean or urge, is small, but as they continue, they will grow in size. They will then peak before they begin to lose cohesion and dissipate. The surfer must put trust in their knowledge that the waves will eventually get smaller and reach the shore. They have to hold on to that trust even when the wave seems overwhelmingly large. All waves arrive, crest, and will subside. You can ride the urge wave by picturing your breath as a type of surfboard until the urge has passed. An urge wave starts out small. It begins with a small bump caused by the entrance of a cue. The urge wave grows in size as the cue triggers an urge to act. If we do not respond, the urge will continue to grow until it finally reaches its peak where, if it has been unable to prompt a response, will crash to an end. it will dissolve back into the calm waters again. On the other hand, if when the cue entered, which triggered the urge, and you gave into the urge or responded, and therefore received the anticipated reward, you will have sent the reward system in your brain a reinforcing message to continue attempting to stimulate that reward, which will start a circular, unending cycle. This will cause you to be hit by wave after wave until you break a link somewhere in that cycle. If you can just wait it out, it will peak in intensity after a few minutes and then gradually subside into nothingness, just as a wave crests and falls. Cravings very rarely last for longer than half an hour and are generally briefer in duration. Surf the urge wave. Over time, you are able to reteach your brain that it is possible to experience an urge without acting on it. Now let's look at what urge surfing is. Urge surfing is a mindfulness technique used to get through an urge without acting on destructive impulses. When you notice an urge, rather than fighting against it, imagine you are on a surfboard riding with it. Notice the shifting sensations, how they rise and fall, come and go. Try to observe and describe the urge in a non-judgmental and non-attached manner. Like waves, urges rise, building up to their cresting point, and then fall. How to surf an urge. Number 1. Take a few moments to notice where you experience urges in your body. You can do this by taking some time to sit in a quiet place, and if you're comfortable doing so, closing your eyes and just allowing your attention to go to the place or places in your body where you tend to feel urges. For some people, they notice that urges are most connected to sensations in their abdomens. For others, they notice urges in their mouth. For example, their mouths water when experiencing an urge to drink. There is no right or wrong place for an urge to be located. What is most important is that you notice where in your body you most notice urges when they show up. Number 2, once you have noticed what part of your body is most connected to the urge, focus your attention on it. If you notice that more than one area of your body is connected to an urge, start with the place that you most intensely notice the urge. Take note of the sensations you're having in this body part. What do the sensations feel like? Does it feel like pressure, tingling, warmth, or coolness? How much space do these sensations take up in this place in your body? Try to draw an outline around the place where the sensations are felt. See if the sensations have any movement. Some people tend to associate sensations with colors or temperatures. Check to see if you notice any colors or temperature associated with these sensations. For some people, it can be helpful to silently describe the sensations in an objective and non-judgmental manner. For example, I notice warmth and tingling in my belly. If more than one part of your body is associated with an urge, go through this exercise with each body part. Number 3, bring your attention to your breath. You do not need to change your breathing at all. Notice your breath for the next 1 to 2 minutes. Some people find it helpful to bring their attention to a particular place in their body where they notice their breath. For example, the abdomen. Some find it helpful to say phrases like breathe in, breathe out as they inhale and exhale. Use your breath to help you ride out the waves, in other words, the urge. Like a surfboard, you can simply observe your breath as you ride out each wave that arises. Number 4, gently shift your attention back to the part or parts of your body where you notice the urge. Allow yourself to notice whatever sensations come up in these places. If it becomes overwhelming to notice the sensations, gently return your attention back to your breath for a few moments, and then go back to noticing the sensations connected to the urge. Notice if and how the sensations change as you watch them. Be sure to practice this step for at least 1 minute, but longer is probably better. Number 5, imagine that the sensations connected with your urge are a wave. Watch the wave rise and fall over and over again as the intensity of your sensations peak and subside. Your job is to use your breath as a surfboard to ride these waves. No matter how big the wave gets, no matter how much you feel as if the wave will consume you, you are a skilled surfer and you will use your breath to ride each wave as it comes. Practice this for at least 1 minute. But again, longer is probably better, particularly the first few times you practice this. And finally, number 6. When you are done surfing the urge, take a moment to thank yourself for taking the time and being willing to do something different with your urges. And that's it. With practice, urge surfing gets easier, and you may discover that you are an excellent surfer. Be sure to check out the video description in the comments below. You'll find a link to the website lesson that accompanies this video. You will also find links to the handouts and worksheets created to complement this video. And while you're there, if you found this video helpful, be sure to like it. Be sure to join us next time in our peer-guided DBT lessons distress tolerance module, where we will be looking at willingness versus willfulness. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel, where our entire DBT course is now available. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time. Bye for now.